Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is a very big, exciting, huge episode of Why Did Ask For.
I think he just called us fat.
This is episode 50.
Oh, yes.
So,
the midlife crisis episode.
As always, I'm your host, Dan. With me is Pat.
I hate computers. I hate them.
And Tip.
Not ready yet.
Still not ready, but we're starting anyway. I don't care. So, first, right off the bat, you will notice that Pat's not in his normal place, position.
Yes. I changed positions.
Why is that?
Okay, so I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I was able to pin everything to my taskbar in Windows 10, and everything was great for the longest time. But then suddenly, I'm not sure what that means. It
says 50. Woo.
Oh, nice. But now it seems like everything that I've worked so hard to build has instantly disappeared with no explanation.
Cool.
So it's kind of like a wife leaving you, but in computer version. You have no idea what you did wrong, but you're pretty sure you effed up somehow. So,
and you're missing half your stuff.
Yeah, and it took half my stuff with it. Exactly.
It was the hacksters.
I guess so. I apologize for my audio quality. I'll try to sound deeper when I talk.
Nah, you're fine.
Okay. So, 50 episodes of Why Did Ask For? Man, have we been busy.
50 episodes and we can't get Pat to keep his pinky down.
You know what? This pinky is the reason we made it this far. So, you're welcome, Internet.
If anything, I think it shows dedication that his computer's all fucked up, but he's recording on his phone. It
shows consistency, at the very least.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I don't know. That's a big word we can't throw around lately.
Oh, I guess that's right.
Well, when we're talking about the podcast, anyway, we've been consistent with other videos. Just I haven't got my shit together yet.
Granted, you've been going through some fun times, which would make for a great story if you told it.
Yeah.
He can't. He's contractually obligated.
I wish I could. Yeah, I've been adjusting to a new job, and the hours that I've been getting, so I don't get much time when I come home. I gotta make dinner, put the kids to bed, all that stuff. I don't get much time to come down here because by then I'm exhausted and walking downstairs is too hard. I actually, as of the time of recording this, I just uploaded last week's podcast about an hour ago.
Nice. So it is up, and everybody's ready to go.
It's up. It's just a week late.
It'd be really odd if people saw episode 48, jump to episode 50, and be like, "Happy 50th!" Wait a minute. They can't count. What's going on?
Wait a minute. They've done this before.
This is so surreal to me, by the way, because I have my camera over here, my normal camera, but I'm having to use my cell phone camera. So this is weird. I'm having to do this, but I'm like so trained to look over there. Yeah. So my whole world's been destroyed.
It's throwing you off.
Yeah.
So I guess we can jump into this because I don't know how long it'll take. Not that anything's segmented or whatever. But Pat had an idea to talk about, since this is kind of a milestone podcast, to talk about sort of what we learned about the creative process from starting this, 60 weeks ago now, roughly, to now, what we've learned, how we got from there to here. And I think that'd be interesting to do.
Yep.
So
I can take people on a tour of my house, by the way.
I'll start with my story since it's a little odd.
I mean, you could tell us, what have you learned about the creative process since we started this tip?
I've learned that everything we do is just a bunch of happy little accidents.
Are we Bob Ross?
This is going to be the best episode because Pat's walking around and it's real interactive and people are going to be like, oh, look at how awesome that is.
They totally planned that.
Then it's not going to happen next week and everyone's going to be like, why didn't it happen? So on episode 52, we'll all be walking around wherever.
I need to let you need to know this was not planned. That annoying echo in the background because I'm standing in my kitchen was not planned. Please continue.
Yes, it was. It was.
No.
But that's really how I think creativity works. Is you set out to do something and end up with something completely different.
Here, I'm going to show you how creativity works real quick here. Hold on.
This is how Pat gets creative.
This is how Pat copes with his computer exploding at the last minute.
Yeah.
That's just how Pat copes with life. He has a problem. We've addressed it before.
Did we though? I'm pretty sure we talked about your drinking problem.
Now I know Tip's not one to talk.
I was trying to what's that word called when you
Project.
Project my problems on the Pat.
Tip, that's pretty much been our entire life. I think that's why we're friends in the first place, because it's easy for us to see our problems as not so big when we have each other to say, "Oh, he's worse."
Yeah.
Yeah, usually.
But it's all in good fun. So.
Yeah, so I guess we could start back at the beginning for people who are just joining Why Did Ask For and don't feel like going back to the beginning, or go back to episode 1 of the podcast and think, it still feels like we're missing something. Who are these strange people and what is this dark blubberhood thing they keep talking about?
I don't want a dick pic.
So, before we named ourselves Why Did Ask For and came up with our cool logo and sort of separated ourselves, Pat and I are a part of an internet fan base group that call themselves the Dark Blubberhood.
Group.
We started off, we're fans of Rooster Teeth, and then they started a forum thread and a Minecraft server, and that's kind of how Pat and I met. And through talking with Pat a little bit, I'd been playing with the idea of doing podcasting, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to start, or if I was going to be good at it or whatever. It's kind of nerve-wracking when you think, oh, I'm gonna put something out there of me talking for a while, and I hope it's funny, but I don't know if it will be. You
got over that pretty quick.
And yeah. And Pat actually said, hey, I got this. I actually run a podcast. If you want to come on, we'll have you on, and you can see if you like it, and then we can go from there. And I said, yeah, that's cool. So we did that, and that is the Jackass Express episode 43.
Yep.
It's also the first time I ever talked to Tip.
Yep.
And I believe he mocked me for being Canadian a lot.
Nothing's changed.
No.
Nope.
No, not really. So anyway, we decided to go ahead with the project. So Pat and I called ourselves. We were doing the podcast on behalf of the Blubberhood. So there's 10 episodes. I believe they're still up if you go to darkblubberhood.blogspot.ca.
Yep.
There's 10 episodes there. They are very, very raw. Very weird to listen to. I went back and listened to a couple, and it's like, wow. we came back. Well,
it's true. I don't exercise.
You know, we've come a long way, but anyway, we got to a point with that where it was just getting to be, for lack of a better term, a hassle to always have different people on. And so when we were looking for our own identity, we were trying to move away from that group a little bit for our own. How would you say that, Pat? Like, we were trying to be
independent,
like for our own creative independence, I guess.
When you're dealing with a large group of people, you deal with a large group of opinions, and there's nothing wrong with that so long as you have a system going on. But we were just beginning; it was the infancy of a podcast, experiment. So, for us to really give it a good shot, it had to start with just a few people, so we could even get the ideas off the ground. Otherwise, we'd be in infinitum talking about ideas and not actually putting forth a product.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where we were. We did 10 episodes like that, and then we found our identity. We found a new name, which still ties us heavily to that group. Actually, one of our other members who's rarely on here, we do talk about him sometimes, Jesse. He was actually one of the... There's a couple people, I guess, that were involved in what Why Did Ask For actually is, as it pertains to a physical... Actually, it's not even physical. Something in a video game, anyway. But Jesse was a big proponent of that, and I can't remember if it was Jesse that brought it up first, or if Pat just said, hey, why don't we just call it this? And I was like, shit, that's brilliant. And so that's when we started as Why Did Ask For, and that was 50 weeks ago. Not to the day, because we used to record on Sunday mornings. But that is almost a year ago. So coming up in, well, obviously in the next 2 episodes from now will be 1 year that we've been doing podcasting as Why Did Ask For. I think
that is
pretty
crazy.
Cool.
That is the most consistent with a podcast I've ever been in, and I think you can ask Tip. Speaking from our biannual podcast, the Jackass Express, which I love. They're like that first child that grew up and didn't quite meet. You're disappointed in your child, and you're like, well, he's still okay. I'm going to let him live at home until he figures it out. And then you get the second child who's a prodigy or does a little bit better, the middle child, and you're like, you know what? I'm proud of this kid. He'll make up for his older, lazier brother.
Yeah, that's what happens. So.
But I will have to say, in not a mushy way, Dan, I believe that you're largely a big part of the success of this podcast, at least for what it is. And you've been very consistent, and your managing skills have helped us tremendously. And I think it's one of the things that we were lacking with Jackass Express was not necessarily talent, not necessarily someone who could say good stories, but someone who was dedicated enough to the project to be consistent with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome, and I'm very proud to be a part of this. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure, and it's weird too. Like we've never actually met in person, but we work so well together.
I'm
there's
Canadian. I'm American version of Dan.
There's always an understanding between us that criticism is always constructive. Mm-hmm. So we're able to listen to one-off projects from each other and go.
There we go. That makes more sense.
Oh my God. No, it doesn't. It's backwards.
Not for me.
Well, good for you.
This is the clue part of the podcast. You go hold it in front of a mirror, and you find out the secret message.
Yeah.
Is it right now? Because right now it looks backwards to me.
No, it's right now.
Oh, well.
So, anyway, I was saying, like, I think, like, that's crucial to have this understanding between us that just because I'm saying there's something that I don't like about what you're doing, it's not because I don't like you personally. It's just I feel the product could be better if we did certain things differently. And the same goes for you. You can always come to me and say, hey, what if we tried this, or what if we tried this a different way? And there's never that, like, what does he think he's better than me or anything like that? So I think that's kind of helped us too. But if you want to talk about creative process, I mean, you can kind of watch us evolve. You go back to the first episode of Dark Blubberhood. Up until today, like, it's always a learning process too. We're always changing. We're always, we used to do just, 4 people, everybody would record all their audio separately, send me the files. I would have to sync them up. Well, I had to learn how to use editing software, which I'd never done before. Learn how to sync them up, and then I think the first episode, I just synced them up, and then I was cutting out just like large chunks of quiet. And then you find the more you do that and the more time you spend on something, the more little things that you'll catch and go, oh, I should get rid of that, like an or an ah, or Pat has allergies. So there's a lot of sniffles.
Bad ones.
Yeah.
Bad. That's my bad. I never.
Pat likes.
I mean, I used to spend. Yeah, it used to take me. Oh God, 4, 5, sometimes 6 hours to edit a 1-hour podcast.
I remember those days.
And that was because I would mute 3 of the 4 tracks, listen to it all the way through for any outside noise, any sniffles, any ums, ahs, or whatever, and then do that for each track, and then listen to it again as a whole and cut out the big chunks of space, and then we would have a final product. Whereas
lies, Pat, lies. How is he texting when he's using his?
I don't know. It's the magic of broadcast, right?
Yeah. So for me, the creative process is really just constantly learning. Like I said, I started with a completely different editing software than I have now. and it worked for a while, and then I kind of got forced into the new one, and I find I like it much better. It works a lot better, for me anyway. But
Yeah,
also,
no, I'm
yeah,
mad at my computer.
Yeah, I've also learned to kind of back off a little bit. Like in the beginning, I would edit out every stupid little noise and try and every time there was a pause longer than like a quarter of a second, I would cut it out and jam everything together. And so if you listen to those early episodes, you go, "Wow, it seems like they're rambling or they're really talking over each other." And that was just mostly me editing, because I would spend so much time on them, just like it's got to sound perfect. And then I come to realize, like, now I hardly edit at all. Like, I'll throw it in. I might cut a few things that someone may have said I don't want to hear or whatever.
Yep.
Well,
And then we just throw that overlay on it, put our end cards and all that stuff on and our intro slate, and render it out. And it's significantly easier now for me. But I still manage to not get things up on time.
another.
Go ahead, Tip.
Go ahead, Pat.
No. I was just gonna say before Dan moves on, or we move on to Tip. Dan, if somebody was starting a podcast right now and they just wanted it to be watchable, what would be your number one advice to give them?
Just
Maybe
do
not.
it.
Yeah, there you go.
It's really, everything comes down to personal preference. With any content creation, whether it's a podcast or whether it's video games or anything, just do it, record it. And my general rule of thumb is, if it annoys me, it's going to annoy somebody else. So remove it. If you're the editor, you have final say. So, whatever you like, put that out. As a general rule, obviously, you don't want like 5-second pauses between every word. Or, but you'll come to find out that, pauses are natural, like this one. And it gives you a chance to kind of gather your thoughts, especially if you're off the cuff and you're not scripting everything, or you don't have a large list of topics that you want to get to or whatever. You just kind of want to, like this out. That's how we do it. We don't generally have a list of things to talk about. Sometimes something big will happen and we'll say, hey, we should talk about that. But usually it's just turn on the cameras and talk.
Yep.
And so I would say, like, if you're out there trying to start your own podcast, just do it. Even if you don't release it, record it. Just record yourself talking with your friends a couple times. Play with some editing software. You can get some decent ones for free, whether it's legal or not. You can get, or you can,
Audacity,
or you can pay for them. I mean, you can use Audacity. I was talking about Sony Vegas.
Skype, free.
Sony Vegas was the one that I used, and it was very easy to get a free copy. Or pay for it. I mean, by all means, support. If you're really serious about it, you might as well spend the money up front, because you're going to spend a lot of time in that program.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I would say just do it.
Absolutely.
Even if it never sees the light of day, you will understand the process a little better. You'll find your editing style a little bit better. And when you find something that you really like, or you enjoy what you're listening to, even though you were the one speaking it, then, release it. I'm sure other people out there will enjoy it.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Very well said. Tip, you were saying?
Part of it, the creative process isn't always in your control. And sometimes things I talked about happy little accidents earlier, and if you go back and you listen to the earlier podcast, Pat and Dan are probably the only two constants from the earlier days to now.
Yep.
And part of that was the channel had more members. It had more content. I don't know more content, but more people doing their thing. And we found, through whatever means, we found a system that works for us. And we split off into two groups. And we do what we do, and they do what they do, and it's just how it works. And in my opinion, some of the earlier content seemed a little forced, because you had two different clashing mindsets as to what's funny and what they want to hear and how they want to do it. So it just kind of worked itself out, and a lot of stuff in this creative process, it'll work itself out if you let it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is if you're working with a large group, and if you're wondering what we're talking about, so we used to work with two other people. They started their own podcast, Recess, on our channel, and it was doing well. It was significantly different than ours. It was geared towards a different audience, and they decided to take that and make their own channel and leave us, and that was totally fine. But that's, I think, one of the things that you need to understand is if you're working with a big group, that can happen where you're going to find that your sense of humor doesn't necessarily maybe, how would I say that, like, complement theirs?
Mesh.
Yeah, well, not that they don't mesh, because, I mean, there was episodes when Josh and Amber were on, and, I mean, almost every episode they were on, they were good episodes.
Yeah.
But when they started their own, it was like, oh, okay, I see where they want to go, because what they want to talk about is geared definitely more towards a younger, like mid-teens to mid-20s, whereas I would consider what we like to talk about generally more around our age, 30 and above.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably some younger people, but just don't be afraid to lose people either. I mean, make it amicable. If people want to leave, let them go. You don't have to hold them back, and it's going to look worse on you if you try and hold them back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you can do is try to pretend that you're relevant to the demographic that's not relevant to you. So, like, if me and Dan were showing up constantly wearing, like, Pokemon hats or constantly talking about swag or having, like e-cigarettes or something, then it's kind of like, it doesn't flow right, and then you lose who you are and what makes you comfortable to talk, and then suddenly it's no longer just a discussion between friends, it's a performance that feels unnatural and weird, which is why I'm glad that you stopped editing the podcast so thoroughly, because like you said, I think those breaks and those ums and those uhs sometimes, as much as they can be unprofessional, they lend to the the realism of what it is, which is just a conversation between friends. It's like, we're having a conversation, and our listener, our dear listener and watcher, is our other friend that we're talking to, who we never give a chance to talk.
It's true. And like, I found, like, it's like, with a podcast, it's supposed to be, or at least in my opinion, it's supposed to be exactly what you see on screen right now. It's three friends talking to each other about random shit. It doesn't matter what comes up. It'd just be the same as you and your friends sitting around your kitchen table having a conversation. The fact that we record ours and put it up, that it's kind of irrelevant. Yeah. Like I said, sometimes big things will happen and we go, we should talk about that, or we should hit on that, but there's no structure to what we do. We just hit record and start talking for a little while and then stop recording. The only difference is we record it, whereas, right now, anybody watching there that doesn't have their own, it's no different than sitting at your table. So ums and ahs happen in real life, so I decided, let it go. Leave them in.
If you guys ever talk to my dad, his cadence, and I'm not shitting you on this, is exactly how I'm talking.
Are you kidding me?
No, that's how my dad talks.
Somehow that explains so much.
and the thing is, the way he talks, he's talking to you about one thing, but he's thinking about something else at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So he'll still be on track with your conversation, and he'll answer every conversation you got like the same way.
Yeah.
Every question you have, he'll answer correctly. But looking at him, he's figuring something else out at the same time. It's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, Dad. Well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've talked about a little bit of my creative process from beginning to end. But this all stemmed from me just saying, hey, I might like to do a podcast once. And that's because I got this microphone for Christmas. And
Excellent
I thought,
microphone, by the way.
Surely I need to do something better than just, use it to chat on Skype or talk to the rest of the Blubberhood group or whatever, because we were always in TeamSpeak or whatever. I'm like, surely I've got to be able to do something. Like, this is a pretty expensive mic, not too expensive, but it's a good mic, and I was like, I got to do something with it. And so I went from just wanting to start a podcast to we have a YouTube channel now that has other stuff on it. It's got gameplay, and so how, I don't know, you'll probably remember it better than I do, Pat, but how did we get from starting a podcast to putting up gaming?
Well, I think what happened is that we realized that we were having too much fun talking to each other, and the podcast wasn't really a full reflection of who we were, because it only encapsulated the time that we had here for the podcast, which you try to keep not too long, but long enough for a certain thing. But for instance, with Tip and I have probably we have a severe amount of history, and that's not to rat on poor Dan. Poor Dan, we just met Dan. But there's been some really stupid things that have happened between me and Tip over oh my God, how long have we known each other, Tip? 20 plus years we've known each other?
25.
And our entire life has been telling these stories over and over again. So it was a great opportunity for us to not only play these games, but really to tell those stories that it would take too much time to tell on the podcast here. And then also for Dan, it was a great opportunity for him to tell us about himself and tell our audience about what's going on with Why Did Ask For. So it was always an interesting experiment to try those things. And plus, we love video games. So
and
we're
when Pat
obsessed with video games.
says we told the same stories over and over and over, we haven't done anything new in 20 of the 25 years we've known each other.
That's
not true.
I have the same thing with my cousin that I talked about a couple weeks ago. It's just almost every time we talk on the phone, 90% of it, or 10% is, hey man, how's it going? What's been up lately? And we catch up within 10 minutes, and then the rest of the time we're on the phone, it's just like, remember that time? And then, oh yeah, I totally remember that. And then you remember this happened, and it's just like,
yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's a lot of people say you can't live in the past, but it's funny.
Yeah.
And every time I think about it, it's still as funny as when it first happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and gameplay editing has been a nightmare.
It can be, and one of the biggest hurdles that we face is syncing of audio and video.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people may notice it even here with the podcast, where you'll see our lips moving, but the audio is just a little bit later, and that has to do with the fact that it's the latency on the internet connection, and that can be hard to compensate for. Although we try our best. No, it's not you, Dan. It's not you specifically.
No. Watch smartass here while you're talking.
Oh, okay. I'm so used to him, I tune it out. But it takes a little bit of finesse to try to get it so that it syncs perfectly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes away too much from the overall product. And like Dan was saying earlier, sometimes you just want to get something out. You don't want to be so much of a perfectionist that you leave it sitting on the cutting room floor forever, because then you spent a whole bunch of time on it, or you intend to spend a lot of time on it, and then you never get anything out. And then what was all the work for in the first place? You end up wasting. I can't tell you how many episodes of Jackass Express that were never released. We have maybe 4 or 5 episodes that were never released just because a small little snafu.
You couldn't tell them, Pat, remember?
I mean...
but the point is that if you're going to get into this sort of thing, it's good to be it's kind of like they say in production, like in movie production, is that nothing's ever finished. It just has to be released. So you have to find a compromise that's not sacrificing the integrity of what you wanted to go out, but you have to be comfortable enough to say, okay, that's the best we could do for now. We'll do better next time. And then you do better next time.
And usually the time to release is when you get tired of saying, hey, welcome to episode 8.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
When you're on your 9 or 10th take for episode 8, and you're just like, God, I hate episode 8. I want it to be done. You just release it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Release what you have.
I think it was episode 8 after we rebranded. If you go, I believe it's called Robo Shua, was the title of that podcast. I mean, listen to that one. I fucked with it for a while. I tried to fix his audio, It wasn't happening, so I put it out as is. I said, fuck it. I'm not going to... I made a commitment to put an episode out a week.
Yep.
I'm going to stick to that regardless. I mean, if people don't like that one, they're not going to listen to it. Hopefully it won't deter them from coming back. Also, one thing I was thinking of while Pat was talking. If you have the ability to spend a lot of time on the product you're putting out, then by all means spend that time and make it great. We don't have that kind of time. I used to have a whole lot more time because I didn't have a job. Now I have a job, don't have that kind of time. But if you have that, like if you don't have a job or you don't need a job or whatever, if you're young, you're still in school, and you have a lot of free time to spend on that, by all means, do that and make a polished product and put it out and make sure it's perfect every time if you want to. But be realistic. If you don't have that much time to dedicate to editing, either make shorter episodes or make some compromises on editing. Yep. Which is what I had to end up doing when I started working again. Was I don't have 6-7 hours to dedicate to, chopping up all these separate tracks and trying to get it all perfect. I just realistically don't have the time, so I'll put it out as a conversation between friends with the ums and ahs in it. I mean, I'll edit out some things, but whatever.
Yeah, there are times.
You can't. Sometimes you can't realistically spend all day. You got to pay the bills. If I didn't have, if this was my full-time job, I would absolutely spend way more time editing and trying to get things perfect and trying to figure out different ways to record this or bring this together better. But we just don't have that time. I got to pay the bills. I got to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And honestly, I think that's what deters people from wanting to start their own podcast, because they're so afraid that they're not going to live up to the standards of some podcasts they're listening to or watching or whatever. And that's the worst thing you can do to yourself, because everybody starts somewhere. Everybody starts where they're not sure if they're good enough or if whatever. But honestly, if you strive to entertain yourself and you're making something that you would watch, which by the way, I watch these when we're done. But he's
the only one.
But then you're trying to appeal to an audience that you don't really have a regular contact with, and you're going to always shoot for the fences. It makes no sense. So if you're making something that you're proud of and you laugh at and you're having fun with, and honestly the conversation that you're having is good, make it a podcast. Have fun with it. I'll never forget that it was a couple years ago for Jackass Express, and I want to do one for here too. We decided, let's do a radio drama. And we just decided, okay, this is stupid.
Thing?
That Halloween special.
Yeah.
And we decided to do that way too late, close to Halloween. So I was writing up the script as fast as I humanly possibly could, and I sat down with each and every one of them, and we got it out. But I can tell you this: if we didn't have that rapport like we have here in the podcast first, that never would have happened, and it would have seemed fake. It would have seemed forced.
Yeah.
And even though when you listen to it, it sounds silly, but you can tell that everybody involved was having a good time. Yeah. And that's what you got to aim for, is everybody involved has to be somebody you look forward to talking to every week.
Yeah, and part of what made that work, I think, is everybody knew how to play off each other. So things were said without the other person knowing, but it still was able to be edited together like, oh yeah, they planned that out.
Yeah.
And that comes from doing work like what we're doing now, or knowing each other, or something. It just comes from that experience. It's not something you can do if you don't have a passion, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say too, like, don't go into anything expecting, or even just whatever you're gonna make it for yourself. Make it for your friends to share around. Don't go into this. I'm going to start a podcast and it's going to be really popular. I'm going to make millions of dollars and I'll never have to work again a day in my life. Don't do that. If that's your mindset, you are going to have a shitty product. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's not going to be good.
It's true.
Just have fun with what you're doing. That's what we do here. We all have jobs. We have day jobs.
Yeah.
In our free time, once a week, we get together, we record this. We keep in contact through, chat apps and all that shit. But I mean, we just do this for ourselves. If it takes off, great. If not, I don't care. I'm having fun doing it.
There you go. And we get a chance to vent to each other about the crazy things that happened in our life that otherwise nobody ever would know about. So it's perfect.
It's true.
It's a perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, not to go off topic too much, I'm looking on Facebook at the top 3 stories, and the one is The Legend of Zelda Breath of Fire. Developers release new gameplay trailer. Great. Pokemon Uranium. Nintendo shuts down fan-made game after reported 1.5 million downloads. And the third most top story, El Paso, Texas, man diagnosed with Zika virus after traveling to Miami.
Rip.
Damn it. Damn it. The only time El Paso can ever make international news is when somebody gets infected with something or something worse.
That's not true. We've made it for some good things.
Got him with
Go on.
We won the 1966 men's national championship in basketball with all black players.
That was a very long time ago. It was an amazing feat, but it was a very long time ago. Since then, we get the Zika virus.
Damn.
I know.
So
anyway, not to deter. Go back.
Well, no, I mean, I'm with all the
or whatever.
All seriousness aside, I was going to say, in an effort to try and start heading downhill towards the end of this,
right.
If you had any favorite moments from the first 49, or even, -10 through -1, as I refer to them. Favorite moments from what we've done so far.
Well, who's going first?
Tip, I'll let you go.
Okay, actually mine, I don't remember the episode number. It was an early one. I think it was even before we started doing video.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan couldn't make it, and we weren't getting started on time. Everyone was just dicking off. So the podcast starts. I introduced everyone, said you were gone, I was in charge, and then immediately after Dan is sitting there, because he was listening in, he just couldn't record, this message pops up, "What's going on?" And it's some of that behind the scenes stuff that I wish we would be able to share with you guys, because there's some pure gold in there.
I remember that. I was way too sick to record.
Yeah.
But I said, you know what? We were using TeamSpeak at the time. I said, you know what? I can actually be there, and I can listen in, and just kick back, relax, listen to a podcast, and not have to worry about anything. But I can still be there to support the team. And I jump in, and immediately I'm going, what the fuck is Tip doing? What is going? And I'm sending messages in the chat like, let's not talk about that. Steer away from that. Move on, guys.
And immediately we came up with the Necromancer Parakeet.
No, that was the only episode I wasn't anywhere near.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
There's 2 episodes I haven't been in. That one that Tip's referring to is one where I was in TeamSpeak but I wasn't recording. And the other time I was not there at all. And somebody decided it would be a good idea to have Shua, Amber, and Jesse on at the same time.
Patrick, looking at you.
Look, man, we needed 4 people. We didn't have you yet. We was just like, we got to do something, right? And I forget that Jesse is just like perpetually a bad influence on other people, and because of that, they're a bad influence on him, and he just takes it further and further, and that rabbit hole just keeps going down.
Yeah, but
if anybody's wondering, that was episode 7. That's also where the inspiration for the design for the Necromancer Parakeet that's in the Society 6 store came from. So if you want to check,
I love that. I love that
7.
design, by the way. I will get a T-shirt of that eventually. It's
okay, Pat. Your favorite moment?
My favorite moment. Oh gosh. You know what? I'll probably have to say that not my favorite moment, because I can't really remember like specifics about it. but that episode where we came out with the Necromancer Parakeet was definitely tops, because I just remember having control at the very beginning and slowly losing grasp of everything.
As you listen to that episode, you're going, all right, Pat's going to run this one. And about 5 minutes in, you go, maybe not.
And
about
that's
10
when
minutes in, you go, I think he's lost them. And then there's a point where Pat's going, Dan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Because I had a plan involved. I'm like, okay, look, as long as I give topics and I keep them consistent and I don't let them go into tangents and all this, I had a plan ready to go. Okay, guys, we're going to do this, this, and this. I kid you not, within 3 minutes, they were talking about something completely different, and we were talking about if a guy was standing at your bed staring at you while you sleep, and then if for $1 million, and I'm like, what happened? And I kept thinking, Dan trusted me with this, and I screwed it up already.
So I just have to ask.
So awful.
On the episode I mentioned, what was your thought process there? Where I just rush in and take control? Was it more the same, I screwed it up again, or?
You know what? When that happened, I think those episodes taught me something, and it was immediately just go with it. I don't care anymore. And it was when you came in and you did that stuff, I was like, all right, Tim, yeah, you're in charge now. I don't care.
Yeah, and the good thing about those is they were both fairly early episodes, but at least with me anyway, I feel like I've established what I'm expecting from people who are on our podcast without having to really say much. And like I mean, mind you, it's just been the three of us for the last little while, but I feel like even now, people, if I'm going to invite you onto my podcast, you know what I expect. And, you know, there's certain things I won't stand for, and certain things I've told people before. Tip's heard it once before. Yeah. Don't talk about this. Stay away from this, or whatever it is. But I feel like I don't have to do that anymore because I've established what I want from my guests or my cast.
And to elaborate on what you're saying there, don't misunderstand. If you're starting a podcast to talk about specifically what you want to talk about, that's fine. But like in the instance of like a comedy-based podcast, which we tend to lean more towards because that's what happens to us, it's not an accurate platform to talk about politics, religion, or really serious stuff, because then you're deterring from the point of why you made the podcast in the first place.
Or personal details of somebody's Facebook page, or... And
certainly don't show your home address.
Showing your home address.
That would probably be a bad idea.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and also don't be afraid to deter some of it to like a director. Like even great movies have a director, and it's not because, this person knows better than me. It's because you need that person to have the critical say when a decision can't be reached. Otherwise, your project's stuck in this weird little loop of not being able to do anything.
Yep.
So it's good to have that person with 2 votes that can say, guys, I know we're really talking about this, but we're going to do this. And then finally decision's reached and you can move forward. And then next time discuss it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
don't get me into instructional. I mean, sometimes people, and this isn't a shot at anybody who's ever been on the cast or anything like that, but just in general, sometimes people just don't know where the line is.
Yeah.
Just in general conversation, sometimes there's just... People might not need to know where you got your information from, or you know, if you pick something from I don't know, just some random person's Facebook page, and you went through their Facebook page and you got some details about them. People don't need to know that you got that from their Facebook page, because it's gonna put a bad image on you and your product. Because it's like, this fucking creep's just gonna go and stalk you on Facebook and find out everything about you or whatever. It's just shit like that. Like sometimes you don't need to know where you got your information from, or there's certain details of a story that might be a little bit risque or a little too far, that just use common sense. You don't need to have every little detail in there. Sometimes it's good to leave some stuff out.
And it's very tempting, especially when you're trying to get your name known, to try to say anything to get somebody's attention. But then it's kind of like having that one friend that you're kind of getting along with, and then, in the middle of the party, they come up to you and say, hey, did you know aliens really exist? Then suddenly you're like, I don't like this person anymore. And it's because trying to be outlandish for the sake of being outlandish for comedic effect is fine. But if you're trying to say things just for shock value, you won't understand how many people you'll lose because you're no longer relatable.
Well, not only that, you have to remember that in the event something really good happens and your podcast or whatever you're putting out gets sponsorships or anything like that, they're looking at your product as a whole. So, I mean, even us right now, we're kind of talking high and mighty at 50 episodes, which really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't much. But it's something we're proud of. But that's 50 episodes, plus what we've talked about, an extra 10. For some potential sponsor or investor or whatever to look back on and find fault in and go, nope, we're not going to give you our money because of something you said in episode 2.
Yep.
So everything that you do, it's online forever. Yeah, there's a delete button, but it's never really truly gone. People can go back on what you've said before, and that could potentially screw you out of a business deal. Whether you were joking or not, some investors aren't going to go, what did you mean in episode 3 when you said such and such a thing?
Like Tip's trying to run for political office.
Yeah, they're going to go, that was kind
What?
of racist.
I'm running for political office?
Out of line or whatever, and they're just not going to offer you anything.
True.
Yeah.
And that's usually what happens with a lot of sound bites that happen out in the internet is taken out of context. But it all has to do with your bottom line. If what you say is going to add to your point, then it's fine. But if you're saying stuff just for shock value, that can be used against you very quickly, and it will be used against you.
Yeah.
And like Tip, who's trying to run for president in 2018.
When am I doing this?
Tip, I haven't told you yet. You're fine.
And the next election is in 2020. Every 4 years, Pat.
We're changing the system. We're changing the system. Somebody's going to get impeached. We don't know who it is. We have 2 choices, except for Gary Johnson. He might make it.
Wouldn't that be funny if Clinton got elected again and impeached again?
Well, he didn't get impeached the first time, but it would be funny to see a Clinton get impeached for something much easier than
the first time.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. For perjury.
Oh, I got to show you guys something. I got a little bit brave this last weekend. You ready?
All right.
Okay. Wait for it. Oh, can you see it?
Yeah, that's really fake.
Huh?
Rub-on tattoos,
really
huh?
Shut up. It's real. It's real to me.
Dude, I have a 6-year-old. She gets rub-on tattoos all the time. I can spot those a mile away.
You could have played into it. I was so proud of it here. And it was Patrick from SpongeBob, so it made sense.
Next week, Patrick's going to come back and be like, look at this, and it's going to be like a full sleeve, but actually real.
Right, and then you guys aren't going to believe me. No, that's rub-on.
There's
keep
no
getting
fucking
tattoos
way.
Till you believe me.
There's no way. You tell him a story about someone breaking a limb, and he's like, ooh. You think he's going to sit there through all that fucking work?
No.
Hey, you know what? It is possible.
He probably almost passed out getting that rub-on.
No, it's not, because any good artist will not tattoo you if you've been drinking.
Really?
Yep.
I thought that helped.
No.
No? Makes it worse?
It dehydrates you, and you're essentially opening a fresh wound on yourself.
Huh. I'm learning something today.
My wife and I were told, no drinking the night before.
Whoa.
Get up in the morning, have a good breakfast, bring orange juice.
It's like having a surgery.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that. I thought, because you always see these stories of people going into tattoo parlors and they're wasted and whatever, or like movies show that, and then they just get a tattoo and they wake up the next morning. It's like, when did I get that? So
it should never happen. I'm not going to say it won't ever happen, but it should never happen.
If the tattoo artist needs the money, they won't care.
So I guess we never went over.
What's your favorite
moment?
My
favorite moment? I don't know that I have one yet. Because I've been running this. I've been running this since the beginning, and yes, Pat and I have been running this. But basically, the podcast has been my baby. Pat comes to help me record. In the beginning, he came to be my support to keep the conversation flowing because I wasn't really good at that. But it was always my responsibility to get guests, to edit, be on time for recording and all that stuff. So I haven't really, it's going to sound really weird, but I haven't really had a moment to really step back and listen to everything, even though I've listened to it hundreds and hundreds of times through editing. But I remember listening to that episode 7, where I wasn't there. And although in the back of my head as the boss, I was going, oh my god, I'm never leaving them alone again, I was laughing so hard through that whole episode because it was just genuinely funny. Yeah, I don't know. I would say episode 7 is probably my favorite, but I don't know any other moments.
I like the episode where we showed up wearing the suits and Tip randomly had a V for Vendetta mask on it, which wasn't too long ago.
That was pretty good. We thought we were
very unexpected.
Yeah, we thought we were getting them, and that didn't happen.
I'm a wild card, guys. Wild card.
The wild card.
At the beginning of the last episode,
Charlie,
was a little bit
need
confusing.
A wild card.
Yes. But I think that shows that we're getting more comfortable as we're doing this, and hopefully that translates well to the people who are watching it, and they'll appreciate our silly style of humor. So that's good.
Yeah.
I
So
like it.
more behind the D. Behind the D.
Behind the D.
I want to be behind the D.
More behind the scenes dirt. Pat is constantly late. We're always waiting on Pat.
I
Every
disagree.
week. Every
You
week
have
we're waiting on Pat.
You have
Pat
proof.
says, "Hey, this time,
He was good.
whatever this time is."
He was good for about a month.
Okay, look at this. Look at this. I took a picture without my home address on it of me recording on my phone this podcast. Okay.
Yeah, but you were still 20 minutes late.
Because I was trying to fix what I normally did. I was trying to fix what I normally did.
What about
It
last
wasn't
week?
working.
What about
Tip,
last week?
please. I was here on time. Tip, please. We were here before Dan. We were wearing the suits, and you keep hanging up. I give up.
And in episode 50, that's where we break.
Oh,
There was a lot
What?
of that, though.
What? Go on.
that kind of made me throw up a little bit.
In the beginning, there was a lot of that. Like, hey, we're going to record it this time. And they'll be like, hey, Pat, we're going to record it this time, right? Yeah, I'll be there. Hey, Pat, where are you? Oh, I'm on my way. God damn it.
Look, man. Everybody's got to have a thing, right? That's my thing. I'm
Fashion.
But
late.
yeah, there's that.
Any other job, I would have been fired by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I record every episode. I wear my slippers.
Nice. That's Tip's creative process right there. By the slippers.
Second I get home.
9 times out of 10, before I start recording, I have to find a shirt.
Yep. Dan walks around shirtless all the time
I
because
do.
he works at a gentleman's club. You see, I didn't want to give it away, Dan. I'm very sorry.
Yes,
he works
I work
at a gentleman's club.
at a gentleman's
And-
club.
And yes, and well, I mean, it's a long day, right? I mean, because
They
there
all
he
have the
is.
same voice. All the DJs at those places. Everyone I've ever been to.
Dan, what's your stripper name there?
Welcome.
Is it Sparkle Shine?
No.
No, coming to the floor, Sparkle Shine.
No, it goes. All right, fellas, put your hands together. Get your money out. It's Dubstep Dan.
That's right, Dubstep Dan. I forgot about that guy. That's what you called him in the Jackass Express podcast.
All right, fuckers.
Well, I mean,
So
I'd been drinking.
somebody
That's
needs to
true.
design that now.
Dubstep Dan. We need that a shirt. We need
On it.
a shirt of that.
Use my cartoon. Figure it out.
Yes,
Got it.
love it.
So anyway, we are just about at time. So I know this episode wasn't really our normal happy-go-lucky, funny thing, but we thought it'd be fun to sort of reflect on our creative process and where we started, where we are now, and hopefully it'll only get better from here. Especially once we get Tip some editing software, because I'm going to dump a whole bunch of shit on him.
Yeah, because I don't have anything going on.
So So as we figure out this, as soon as this opens, everything will stabilize. But that's not for another month or two. But yeah, just general advice: do you?
Yep. I'm a
Somebody
big
out there
proponent
will
of that.
like it. It might be 5 people. It might be 5 million people. Either way, somebody will like what you're doing, but just make it for you.
What's the name of our Twitter follower? Black and Blue Pain or something like that?
We have more than just her on
She's the one
Twitter,
that mentions us.
but
She's cool.
she was the first one to interact with us on the chat on Twitch, which
Yep,
we haven't
so-
done in a while. We haven't streamed the
No.
podcast in a while.
No,
Which
but
we'll probably get back into that.
Shout out to her.
Yes.
It's nice interacting with our fans.
Thank you for putting up with our crap. You're very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. You're a good person.
Actually,
All right.
that was my favorite moment.
What's that?
Talking with our one fan.
Yeah. Made me
Love
feel
it.
like a big shot.
It was pretty cool to find out that, holy shit, this person isn't part of the Dark Brotherhood, who is the majority of our audience.
Yeah.
It was really cool. I'll admit, I got a little like, I want to put all my attention on this person because they somehow found us
Yeah.
and enjoyed what we do, and it was really cool. Now, I can't guarantee you any interactions with us in the future will be like that. Maybe.
We'll get complacent.
Yeah.
Then we'll retire from Instagram and you're like, God, you guys just need to understand.
I haven't put anything up
It's
on
hard
Instagram
doing
in
what we
forever.
do. I'm
I know,
making a
right?
pop culture reference.
It's been a long time. So,
Yep.
yeah, anyway, I don't know if you guys have anything else to throw in. We're at an hour here, so.
I think I'm good.
All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you for 50 episodes, and here's to 50 more. So,
Here.
Empty glass.
special shout out to Tip and Pat, of course, for being here constantly for the past however long you guys have been here.
To my
Yeah,
computer
don't
for
forget
failing me.
Don't
Go on.
Don't forget to check out our store at society6.com/whydidasfor. That's society, the number 6.com/whydidasfor. Give us a follow on Twitter at whydidasfor or at whydidtip, at Celtic Horn, at whydiddan. And hopefully
Subscribe on the YouTubes.
Oh yeah, subscribe to YouTube. That'd be a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. That one's
Sorry.
important.
I always forget
And
about that one.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say 40 days till I go to Germany. I made an offer 10 episodes ago.
Still waiting on
Still
Selena
waiting to hear
Gomez.
back.
Come on, Miss Gomez. You're too busy arguing with Bieber. You got a real man right here.
There you
Better
go.
than Bieber.
All right, guys. Thanks for
Yep.
joining, and hopefully we made you ask, why did ask for?
Why did end
Bye.
50
Till next time.
times?